So, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, we've heard it from German Federal Minister for Digitalization, Mrs. Baer, and we all know that digitalization is a huge topic. It affects our everyday lives. It couldn't be more symbolic that we are having the last panel, after the panel, that we have all our speakers digitally connected with us. There are hundreds of people watching us digitally. And if we imagine how fast the progress goes, think of it how difficult it would be to make this format of the summit just 10 years ago, maybe even impossible. But the progress brings even some hurdles that we have to jump over, some obstacles that we have to overcome, and how that will be done will be discussed in the next panel. And it is my pleasure to give the floor to my colleague, the editor-in-chief from E15, Mr. Nikita Polyakov. Nikita, it's yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really glad to be here once again in this beautiful Chernin Palace, and I'm glad to host today's debate. My name is Nikita Polyakov. I'm editor-in-chief of E15 Daily, and I would like to welcome you here today at European Prague Summit. In the next 60 minutes, we will be talking about digital Europe, how we foresee it, what can we do about it, how to drive digital transformation forward, how to prevent technological supremacy of the key players in the digital game, and of course, how to support digital growth within smaller enterprises and European citizens, even at the periphery of the European Union. Big challenges are ahead of us. As we could hear a couple of moments ago, huge investments are needed in order to finance the transformation of the European Union. And there are big targets that have to be met in the next 10 or so years. Are we on track with our agenda? And what tools and forms of cooperation should we choose to make it and to move forward? I will be discussing these topics and these motives with our today's guests, our panelists for the debate. With Marta Makowska, Senior Research Fellow in the European Union Program, the Polish Institute of International Affairs. Hello, Marta, welcome.
Thank you.
Petr Očko, Deputy Minister for New Technologies, Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Czech Republic. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
And digital presence at the digital debate, Marcel Kolaja, Vice President of the European Parliament. Marcel, welcome. Hope you can hear us and see us all well.
Good afternoon. I hope that you can hear me and see me as well.
Yeah, I think we'll manage, hopefully. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have around 50 or so minutes for the debate, and I wouldn't want to do it by myself. So please, if you have any questions throughout the discussion, feel free to post them, to ask them via Slido. You can find a hashtag on your website if you are watching it online. You enter the event code to join the conversation and go for it. We will address the topics at the end of the debate. So let's start off, European Digital Decade. My first question will be more open, so to say, and I welcome you maybe to give your take on the broader topic that we will want to talk about. And what does a digital decade of the European Union means for you? That is, what is the most important part of the transformation from your perspective? And maybe what to do in order to achieve it. And if you don't mind, Marta, I would start off with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You can give a brief introduction and we can start off from that. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank you for inviting me here. I'm very happy to be here in person, which is the first time this year at the conference. It feels very nice. Well, when we talk about the digital decade of the European Union, I think we can say that we are at the very beginning of our journey. This journey obviously accelerated recently due to COVID pandemic, but we still have a lot to do. Well, what is positive is that we see a change in the mindset of the European leaders, both within the European institutions and also in the member states, that digital policy is no longer about the regulating single market, only removing barriers, and making transnational commerce flow. It's much more these days, and we see the change of this mindset with the recent publications from the European Commission, European Digital Compass 2030. It's a type of document that I think addresses well the weaknesses of the EU, which is a very good starting point, that we know what we are bad at, and it draws certain policies, certain directions where we can manage. And for me, just to be brief, the most important part of this journey we will now that we will now do is to take into account most vulnerable citizens, but also businesses, sectors of our industries, to make this digital transformation truly pan-European and not to leave anybody behind. Because when we focus solely on the greatest projects, on being the most competitive, building European supercomputers, or providing the best research in the AI sector, it's easy to lose what is the most important in the European Union, which is our values, our human-centered approach. Thank you.
Marta, thank you very much. Peter, please, your take.
Yeah, also thank you very much for the invitation to this wonderful event. And I'm looking forward for the debate on a very timely topic. So your question on digital compass, maybe I will start with saying that actually digital campaign or offensive of European Commission started even before digital compass was published. Actually, we saw the last year a big package of digital publications by European Commission, and I think that the digital compass is important, but we need to see what happens in the regulatory framework, because we can have nice goals set up by digital compass, but we have to come back to the roots, to the regulation. And we are sometimes a little bit scared if the road as it was paved by the Commission is completely compatible with the goals, but maybe we will discuss it later on. So just to remind, actually, what is on the table now is complete regulation, new regulation for data governance act, and the data act is coming. We have big regulation in the area of e-commerce and platforms, and we have quite still fresh regulation of artificial intelligence on the table. Not speaking about industrial policy of the EU that was also not so long ago published. So, and in this, we hope that we will be able to achieve the goals of Digital Compass. It's definitely difficult to say which one is the solely most important, but I would agree with what actually Marta said, that the most important are people, of course. So if I should pick one, I would pick digital skills and inclusiveness. That's definitely very important. But of course, there cannot exist digital society without secure digital infrastructure, and digital economy doesn't exist without digitally transformed companies. And of course, the state should be also digitalized. So everything is important. So for me, of course, Digital Compass is a very valuable document, and but we should see it in broader context. And I'm looking forward that this debate will bring this also into this context of proposed regulation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Marcel?
Yeah, thank you. And good afternoon again to Prague from Brussels. When we speak about digitization, we never avoid comparing the past years with basically the course of the year in the pandemic. And in that comparison, we see that the pandemic accelerated the use of digital technology in many aspects, in schools, but also in things like how conferences like this are organized, because the remote participation is much more adopted, has been much more adopted than in the past, both for speakers and the audience, and also in how the European Parliament works, for instance, just to name some of the examples. However, if we look at the whole picture of how the internet works and what are the legal rules on the internet, we'll find out that the main rules for the internet, legally speaking, hasn't been or have been unchanged for more than 2 decades now. So because the main framework was set around year 2000 in the e-commerce directive. And the digital compass that has been mentioned by the previous speakers is basically a document that shows the direction, maps where the gaps are, and shows the direction. That's why it's called compass. And it sets certain goals, like, for instance, the percentage of population that should be knowledgeable about digital technologies, and so on. But when we speak about legislation, the artificial intelligence regulation has been mentioned, for instance, or the Data Act and the Digital Governance Act. And I would like to highlight 2 particular pieces of legislation, which is the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act, that will shape the way how the internet will look like in the following decades. When it comes to the Digital Services Act, its aim is to enable removal of illegal content online, one of the main aspects. However, what I always say is that it is important to be sure that we do not hamper the freedom of speech. So to the motto that everybody uses, what is illegal offline should be also illegal online, I always add, what is legal offline should stay legal online too. So one of my main aims in that legislation, where I work in the capacity of shadow reporter in the CULT committee, I aim at protection of consumers and protection of fundamental rights, if you will, like freedom of speech. For the Digital Markets Act, that is a regulation that aims at balancing the forces on the market, because we have been seeing the digital markets to failing in some of the aspects, or some of the digital markets. Like, for instance, think of social networks, or think of chat platforms, where we see issues like major tech companies emerging and leaving no space for competition. Like, there is really no competition to Facebook, to be honest. And we need to set rules so that SMEs are also able to compete on the market, and that they are not, let's say, destroyed by the rules that the gatekeepers set on the market. And one of the favorite example I give when it comes to unfair rules on the market is a case of Spotify versus Apple that the European Commission currently investigates, and already preliminary communicated on that, where Spotify didn't like having to pay 30% fee on all transactions because of the need to use the Apple Store, which of course gives a competitive advantage to the Apple Music service by Apple. And such competition cases have been emerging in the past already, but the thing about competition cases is that take up to several years before they get settled. And in the meantime, of course, those who have to face these unfair rules suffer from that. And it may even become that basically they go bankrupt before these cases are settled. So the Digital Markets Act has the aim to improve the situation on the market by setting a fair rules that the gatekeepers would have to adhere to. That also competition is possible, which will lead to more choice on the market and higher quality of service with lower prices. And I'll stop here.
Thank you. Okay, so several words were mentioned here. There is a good cause, but the practice and interest may differ within the nation states. That's for one, right? Then there is a huge question about whether we are on time with the digital strategy. Recent Deloitte study shows that French recovery plan has not enough to meet EU's digital targets. Germans are also quite concerned about this topic. So are we on time, and is everything as smooth as it should be, or what the largest challenge we are dealing with at the moment while pursuing the digital transformation? Petra.
So. Actually, we are on time. Actually, what happens now in Europe, in what actually we all the speakers here mentioned, in proposals of regulation is in a way actually a very pioneering exercise. Actually, if you look into other countries in the world, into the US, China is this is different maybe, but other parts of the world, you see that. Also, these countries actually face the challenges that were actually mentioned here. I think very good example of Spotify versus Apple and fair access to markets for small companies or through digital platforms. So actually, we are not so late, definitely, because it's happening everywhere in the world. And also, the topic of free speech online. Was actually highlighted by the White House events in the beginning of the year, and actually we are in the situation that now actually the platforms decide what will stay and what will be deleted. Actually, there are some rules, ethic boards. That's actually maybe positive development, but. Actually, something has to happen, and even in the US and other developed markets, you don't see that they actually have solved it. So we are not so late. So it's good that we are going to in this way, and also actually EU has a few very nice examples when European Union can be actually pioneer in a good way. For example, for me, GDPR is a good example how to work with legislation in data protection. Not everybody would agree in everything, administration and so on, but still GDPR is something that showed to the rest of the world that protection of data online is very important and how to approach it. So actually we can show the way in in this digital legislation to the rest of the world to some extent. But on the other hand, it's also good to say that actually also we in the EU, we are also able to spoil the things a little bit by unnecessary over-regulation, by not meeting the right areas that need to be regulated, or other maybe misunderstandings. So it also happened in several areas. Actually, if I would say what I'm a little bit scared of, and we had some discussions also with Mr. Kolaja online on this, and Czech position will probably reflect this, is regulation of artificial intelligence. That on one hand, it's needed, and everybody agrees that we need human-centric artificial intelligence in Europe, and this is exactly something where EU can show to the rest of the world how it could be done in a good way, how it could be regulated. But on the other hand, when we saw very heavy regulatory proposal that was actually published in April, we are quite scared that it will actually kill or will make big damage to innovative environment here in Europe, and actually damage especially small and medium enterprises that we should speak about today too. Yep. So is it good or not? The way is generally good, but actually how it was proposed probably is not ideal way. But still, we have a few months or years to discuss the final shape. Maybe also it's good to mention that was already mentioned here that the Czech Republic has a presidency of the Council of the European Union in the second half of 2022. So it will be also on the Czech Republic how we will shape final shape of these legislative acts. So I don't think we are too late. We can still be even leaders, but we shouldn't spoil things, and the debate is necessary.
Yeah, Marta, there are concerns. There are concerns about overregulation. There are concerns of being, I don't know, too slacky about it. What's your take on it?
For the sake of the debate, it would be good if we didn't agree on something. But I have to say that I support everything that my predecessors speak here about the regulation. Well, I guess the idea of regulating AI was supposed to be a little bit like another success story like GDPR, but it's, as you said, it's very hard to find the right balance. The good thing is that there are now 27 states that can discuss with the European Commission, the European Parliament, the best version, but it's also what we can see as a positive, that we can have the best outcome, can be also the bad side, because when we have 27 states, we have different visions and disagreements, and this can have very negative impact on the time. And I think that when it comes to regulating, for example, digital platforms, the time is crucial. The timing is crucial, because what we have seen, for example, during the pandemic, for example, in the first quarter of 2021, I think the revenue of the Apple itself was like $50 billion, and it accelerated. All of those big tech companies, their revenue accelerated incredibly during the pandemic, because we digitalized our lives very much, and we became very dependent on those companies. Another example where we have been very dependent as the European Union, as member states, was the example of, for example, tracking applications that the governments were trying to develop to diminish the spread of the COVID pandemic. There was obviously a huge debate about the privacy breach, how to at the same time gather important data and not breach citizens' privacy. But at the end of the day, the two companies, Google and Apple, were discussing this with the member states, the final version of those applications, because they have the 99% of the software applications market, and they had to agree. They were negotiating from the power position how those applications finally were looking at, because they wanted them to fulfill their policies. So this shows us quite dangerous place, timing, that we are already here now, that member states are very dependent on the internet companies. Mm-hmm. And I wanted also to add about this. What are the challenges is, for example, we talked briefly about the national recovery plans, that 20% of those plans should be devoted to the digital transformation. And you've mentioned that already several countries are possibly not delivering this goal. But the other issue is also how this 20% is being spent, because obviously infrastructure, modern infrastructure is crucial, and we have seen this during the pandemic, that we need very good internet connection. We need 5G networks to use this. To use the newest technologies, but we have to go beyond infrastructure. We have to do smart investments to make them sustainable for a longer term.
Thank you, Marta. Maybe Elon Musk will connect us via Skylink, and we will have to do anything about it. Marcel, please, we will return to the big tech versus SMEs challenge in a while. Please, can you give your Brussels perspective on the topic? Are we on time, or are we too late already with the digitalization and implementation of the transformation plans within the nation states? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's never too late. It's always good to address issues that we currently have, even though if we think that we are late. But I would say, it depends on a perspective aspect. So when it comes, for instance, the rules on the internet, when it comes to removal of illegal content and preserving the freedom of speech, I think that we needed some time for the existing rules to exist and to show where the issues are. So I think that over there we are kind of like about the time when it comes to addressing the lack of competition on digital markets. Sure, we could be maybe more advanced in that debate already, but well, it is happening now, so we have to work on that now. I wanted to address one particular point that Mr. Očko mentioned where he spoke about this events in the United States when Donald Trump's accounts were suspended, and this is exactly one of the issues that we need to be looking into in a much more broader perspective. Not this particular case, because that's just an example, but in a general way. And here the Digital Services Act can help a lot. I am pushing for rules that will make it sure that decision about if content is legal or illegal stays with courts, because as has been mentioned, one of the issues is that the platforms actually decide what is appropriate on the internet and what is not, which is basically a privatization of law enforcement, which is a huge problem. Then also, when it comes to the terms and conditions, they totally need to be in line with fundamental rights. And also the foreseen notice and action framework should provide means to object the decisions to take content down and should offer ways how to reinstate that content if the person that complained about their content being taken down is right. And the Digital Markets Act can perfectly complement this, because not only that the Digital Services Act bring these new rules for online platforms, but the Digital Markets Act can bring more competition, so that then basically it would not be just the gatekeepers who are the literally gateway to information, because there will be competition on the market and citizens could easily choose which of the platform is better for them, which today is practically impossible, because if you are not on the major ones, then you are practically non-existent in the digital world.
Mm-hmm. Marta, you mentioned a few times this, all of you mentioned Digital Markets Act, a big thing coming for the European Union. If it gets passed, we have a couple of years to do that. At the same time, there are some voices, the critical voices, saying that there are some shortcomings that this act is facing. Some of them may be saying that the very definition of the gatekeepers, of the big players, is problematic. There are also questions, how will the regulation of big tech help actually SMEs to flourish? There is not like there are 5 Facebooks, but only one got the monopoly position. It's like it's only one of a kind platform. What way should we regulate, or what way should the Digital Markets Act work in order to help SMEs against the big tech companies? If you could expand a little bit in more example-ish way.
Well, this is a very interesting but also tough question. I have to say that I'm a little bit afraid of the coming negotiation process of the DMA Act between the member states. And
why? Why is that?
Well, I see the project of the European Commission that was presented, and we already see that different member states have some reservations towards certain ideas in this project. We are also not one of the examples that is I think was already a little bit mentioned by Mr. Kolaja was the interoperability dimension of the Digital Markets Act, that has been in the first versions of the document, but not in the final presented version. It has been a little bit downplayed, and this is something that could help an ordinary citizen, for example, choose not be part of certain platform, but use its features, because the problem with the platform economy in general is that the bigger it gets, the better it is, not only for the platform itself, but of course the platform then gains more money, but also for the users, both individual users when it comes to, for example, social platforms, but also for business users. Because platforms basically connect different parts of the market. And I think that if you ask ordinary person, would this person like to have 5 different Facebooks? This person, ordinary European citizen, I don't think wouldn't like that. But what we need to do, maybe not me, but the states and the European institutions, we have to make people aware that they can have more choices, that they can have more rights to save their privacy. They more choices what they do with their data and how they navigate throughout those platforms, not to be excluded and not to be demanded from the platforms to give consents on certain issues so that they can take advantage of it. But the question you asked primarily how to make this legislation work. I mean, I think it's the question for very competent lawyers and competition policy specialists, and there will be always some some uncertainties and some doubts whether this or that regulation will not harm small businesses. One thing that I want to add also is that the Digital Markets Act in general does not include the regulations on mergers that happen in the digital sphere.
And the vertical ones, Facebook, WhatsApp, for example.
Yes, okay. Yes. Basically, there is this article that says that the gatekeeper should notify that it's planning to take over, to buy out certain company, but I think the critics see that it's too little and it's not going to save a huge number of small companies, small startups from being bought by tech giants. The other issue is though that some small companies have precisely this kind of business model that they want to develop just a little bit and be bought by a huge company.
Yeah, that's how many startups work that actually will get funding by the definition from the Digital Markets Act. Marcel, how the Digital Markets Act will help the SMEs?
Tremendously, I would say. Where should I start? Do we have 2 hours for
we have 2 minutes, I'm sorry.
All right. Look,
just say maybe two, 3 main points, and we will touch upon that in the debate later now, because there are questions.
Yeah, I will, for sure. I mean, I think that I have explained the general problem already. The markets, some of the markets are dominated by big players, and they basically set the rules on the markets so that competition is not possible there. This has to change. And the Digital Markets Act creates obligations for these big tech companies. They are called gatekeepers. It will for sure be only a handful of them that will fall into scope of the regulation. And one of the aspects that really helps the SMEs is the mentioned interoperability, which will make it possible for SMEs to interconnect with the big platforms and provide services. Also, if we take the example of Spotify versus Apple, the aim of the Digital Markets Act is also to make it impossible for these gatekeepers to set these unfair practices, like that they would bind them to a particular service and then pay this very high commission fee from using the service. Acquisitions is, of course, one of the parts of the Digital Markets Act as well, where we have seen that gatekeepers, often acquire smaller companies to expand their portfolio of services, but also often to obtain personal data. So data combination is also one of the issue, especially for consumers. But in general, what the Digital Markets Act can help with is to set the rules on the markets in a way that these smaller companies can compete. I mean, like, if you want to start a social network that competes directly with Facebook, how would you do that today? It's virtually impossible. The interoperability that was mentioned, of course, can bring 5 different Facebooks, but the issue with 5 different Facebooks under the current conditions is that, as it was mentioned by Marta, nobody would like that, because what would you do with 5 different social networks like Facebook if users on one network cannot interconnect with users on the other network. And what interoperability can do is that one can compete on that market with Facebook, because your users would be able to interconnect with users on Facebook. So these are the types of obligations and band practices for the gatekeepers that would tremendously help SMEs, and that would create more competition and more quality on the market for consumers.
Thank you. Peter, do you want to add something briefly?
Maybe many things were said, but just to add, of course, DMA is actually to a big extent necessary piece of legislation that has to be somehow approved, and there will be a big discussion. What I wanted to say, that definitely, I fully agree that there will be a big debate. Of course, interoperability is one of the solutions, but I think more and more we will discuss it in a way in which we discussed the future of other infrastructure or network effects sectors, because as it was said here, actually we speak about network effects, network externalities, where critical mass is everything, and there is one winner with that achieves critical mass and lots of other losers. And if we take examples from past times, take railroads, take utilities. It took 100 years and even more, but in the end, actually, liberalization happened. And in which way liberalization happened? In a way of structural separation of actually what we could here call platform, but in railroad, it's railroad infrastructure from services. So I think that this is the way we should go with some services to be able to actually say what is service, what is the infrastructure, and we have more levels. We have a real digital infrastructure, telecommunication infrastructure, where we have a big debate on this. Actually, even in the sense of interoperability. If you are interested in telecommunications, you probably know that there is a big discussion on Open RAN. That is actually interoperability in the area of telecommunications. Then we have data layer. This by the way, covered by Data Governance Act and partly by Data Act that will be published this year. And there we also need interoperability, and then we have a layer of the service, digital services. Actually, we have published together with our experts some publications on this. But I think the debate should be structured like this: to say clearly what we speak about. We speak about infrastructure and services, and we speak about structural separation, and we need to actually grant access to this infrastructure, to the platforms, and it means to grant actually open and transparent access. And this is what is DMA about, actually. So I try to explain from the other way.
Part, yeah.
And I think that the debate will be really difficult, because I think we are not at the end of the debate. Actually, it will be very difficult, but it's necessary, and it happened in all the other network effects sectors. And here it must happen much more quickly than it happened, for example, in railroads.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your questions. There are increasing questions for you. You wanted to add something, Marcel? Or, no?
Yeah, okay. I wanted to add a bit, if I may, because we touched a couple of times on, there will be a debate on this, and the debate will be difficult, and we are not at the end of the debate. We are actually at the beginning of the debate. When we have this debate in the European Parliament, as much as in the Council, of course, and we will have at the end of the debate in the Parliament and in the Council basically two positions, and then these positions will have to be somehow compromised, which is what Marta referred to when she said, I am afraid about what the member states will do with this. In the European Parliament, I need to say that the way how the Digital Markets Act is structured by the Commission, I think, is perfectly fine. But the debate in the European Parliament will be about So how large is the scope? What are the companies that actually follow into it? Is it more like 5 companies, or is it more like 15 companies, for instance? And then what are the obligations that we put on this on these gatekeepers? Is the interoperability obligations going to be only for ancillary services, or is it going to be also for core services? And what does it really mean? What will be the enforcement of it, and so on? And I agree that these debates will be extremely difficult, because there are several directions in which we can go. And in the end, we will have a compromise that hopefully will be useful and will help the SMEs as much as consumers to get higher quality services on the digital market. And I am the shadow rapporteur in the lead committee in IMCO, so I am trying to improve it from that perspective that I just explained.
Thank you, and thank you again for your question that you asked. I'm going to address them now from the audience and from our viewers. And we got about 10 minutes, so if I may ask you to be briefer. Thank you very much. How much of digital legislation, and you touched upon this question, should be national or should be coming from the EU? Germany, a couple of years ago, started to control Facebook content. Is this the way to go? Should nation states establish this sort of moderation of content, of what Google or other platforms are showing to the members of the European Union? Marcel?
Yeah, thanks for this question. Actually, this is super harmful, I need to say, to build national legislation that relates to something as global as the internet is. We cannot really fragment the digital single market into a fragmented digital market. We have to build really a single market, and therefore we need European rules, especially for the issue like content moderation that needs to be unified across the digital single market, because if it's not, then it's no longer a single market, which of course is a problem from many reasons.
Mm-hmm. Please.
I think there's nothing to add, because actually a single market is now digital single market, so
that's it.
Yeah.
Based on aging working population in the European Union in the long term, should there be more specific to emphasize and not diminish the AI sector and the regulation? And do you feel that there is maybe there is a will from the business side of the European Union to support this development, and maybe some concerns from the national member states? How do you perceive this debate? You touched upon it, Peter. Maybe if you could maybe expand on it a little bit. So what's the situation here, briefly?
For AI regulation?
AI.
Yes, as I already mentioned, actually, we definitely, actually, the first thing for us, as I'm a representative Minister of Industry and Trade, so we have close partners in the business, and we consult with them quite intensively. So I think I can say that we actually know what probably mostly the business sector wants, and actually everybody understands that AI regulation has to be in place. And actually, also that we have to define some risky areas that actually could be could be problem with the European view of AI as a human-centric artificial intelligence. So that said, actually we were, and the business were actually surprised by a really extensive nature of AI regulation. It's really horizontal. It's not focusing only on risk areas. It's really horizontal. So every EU startup that wants to develop or develops application AI will fall under this regulation as it is now. The regulation has some points that say that the member states should support innovation and startups, but on the, in other articles, it says that they have to do so much work in compliance that we effectively kill the innovative spirit in these startups. So that was actually what I said in the beginning, that in Digital Compass, we see goal to double number of European unicorns. And in AI regulation, we actually say, dear startups, you will have to hire more lawyers, it will be more costly for you, and maybe member states will help you, maybe not, it depends on the member states. So actually for us, definitely the Czech position will be actually, still a little bit to try, I don't know if it's possible, not to make the AI regulation so horizontal, really mostly focus on the risky areas, and to have some light principles for the rest, and at least to try to actually change it in a way that for SMEs and startups there will be some exceptions from compliance obligations. So I think it's very important, like C certification. I don't know if it's necessary for every startup that actually has come with a new AI application. So I think there will be also a big debate. On the other hand, we fully understand that the regulation has to come, and we are very much open to discuss it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Marcel? Brief note?
Yeah. Maybe it would be good to explain why actually we need the AI regulation. And the reason is that with this technology that, of course, can mean a lot of technological progress and a lot of help in all sorts of area, in medicine, in administration, everywhere. It also brings a lot of challenges and certain risks. So it is fair to basically set the rules in a way that the artificial intelligence technology is, as has been said, human-centric. So maybe to give you an example, or let's say artificial intelligence can be used in anything from autonomous driven vehicles, cars, through a process of hiring candidates where CVs would be screened by artificial intelligence, to some tiny tasks in administration. And you can, of course, see in this that the risk really varies from the actual application of artificial intelligence. And why we need a human-centric one? Well, because if you are applying for a job and artificial intelligence is going to screen your CV and you even don't get to the second round of the interviews because, or second round in the hiring process where the interviews are, because artificial intelligence somehow decided that you are not one of the best candidates, well, then we really need some rules here so that we are sure that citizens have some rights. So this is basically what the AI regulation is about.
Thank you. When you scroll through the Digital Europe and you look at the targets, some of them are ambitious, at the same time quite concerning. For example, 100 citizens having access to medical data, right? Cyber attacks are increasing quite rapidly in the last couple of years. What should be the trade-off, or how many efforts should we put in pushing digitalization forward, and how much time and effort should we use to secure our hospitals when we want to share all, for example, medical data throughout the system? How does the European Union looks at cyber attack concerns in the context of European transformation towards digital? Marta, if you don't mind.
Yes, sure. Well, I think we cannot escape the digital crime, just like we cannot escape crimes in the real life. What we have to do is we have to build systems that are protective as much as possible, and we have to build procedures and educate people who are navigating through this system, who are basically using internet. Education is the key on every level. Even, I mean, education of this aging population that was mentioned. We have to make sure that the most vulnerable, who are probably the oldest people, are not the victims of the cyber crimes on a large scale. And it is a tough task, but we have to give them proper tools how to differentiate between what is real and what is fake on the internet. And this is also relates to the AI regulations, because one of the aspects of the AI is manipulation and producing fake content. And one of the propositions in the European Commission document actually is to make it obligatory to inform the user that what you are seeing is fake. I think this is a fair starting point.
Mm-hmm. Gentlemen, do you want to add something, Peter?
Maybe just a few words actually. What should be probably said that actually we are in the phase of very rapid development of digital technologies, and we see more and more that some people are scared or actually tired sometimes of digital technologies, and we need to address it much more so than before, I guess. Actually, for me, example, because I'm also responsible for that, is 5G. Whatever reasons are behind the 5G fake news, 5G fake news are actually extensive, and people are actually really thinking that this is a problem. They don't want new phones. They actually are attacking the stations and so on. And actually, we should take more time and energy to explain why we are doing that. Why is it? How does it help? Why is safe? And to invest into security, of course, cybersecurity. Wherever we speak about digital, we need to speak about cybersecurity. This has to be hand in hand, and we have to be sure that it is so, that we have as much possible cybersecurity as possible. Of course, you said that. That cybercrime will not disappear, as normal crime probably will not disappear, but we should do as much as possible, and we need to explain to the people. That's actually the same with AI regulation. Of course, we have to address the risk application, social scoring, actually human resources, of course, users' emotions, manipulation, and so on. Of course, we have to address it, and we have to explain to the people. That is, I think this is a big change that probably maybe, if I would say that something should be stressed more in digital compasses, actually this awareness raising and the communication to the people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Marcel?
Yeah, I'm aware of the time, so I'll try to be brief. I would agree that we have to start with people. Cybersecurity is many things, and we need basically a resilient society that can face these cyber threats, that is resilient against social engineering, to attempts, to get access to your bank account, to be resilient against disinformation, which will basically only grow with all these deep fake videos and everything that the artificial intelligence will enable. That we will need much more digital skills. So it's not just about, the digital skills are never only about having IT skilled people that can, write programs or design hardware or anything like that. It's about the digital skills of a random Joe that works with digital technologies every day and needs to understand the underlying issues and underlying threats. But of course, it's also about securing the infrastructure. And coincidentally, I've been working just on a cybersecurity file, an update of the Network Information Security Directive, which is a lot about securing the critical infrastructure, and there I insist that the best secured infrastructure is an infrastructure that is secure by design. So we have to promote as much as possible open source software or free and open source software that is secure by design. If there is a flaw, it can be discovered before it is deployed on a mass scale. And there's no incentive in hiding security by obscure design that always leads to issues.
Marcel, thank you very much. Marta, Peter, thank you for great insights today. Let's all wish us good luck in this difficult, crucial transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for being here with us. And I give word back to Honza. Thanks again.
Thank you to you, Nikita, and thanks to all the guests of the last panel.